for fancy terms, it's basically an expedited budget process.
51 votes rather than 60.
Right, that does not require, it's not, you can't use Senate deliberation tactics, filibuster to slow it down. This looks like the most likely vehicle for a repeal of Obamacare. In the Budget Committee, along this sort of outpost for years, it's become more and more important. Is that, what are we looking at in terms of timing on that, and who are going to be the people who are going to be pushing that in the new year?
So I think we're ending up in kind of a quirk of a situation. The House and the Senate did not adopt a budget resolution for this year. They should have done that this spring. They didn't. We began the current fiscal year in October. One of the nice little things you can do when you haven't adopted a budget resolution for the year is, even in the new Congress, even as you're 3 months into the actual fiscal year, the Congress can adopt a budget resolution for the current fiscal year. And that can spin off a reconciliation bill, and that'll provide them with a vehicle similar to what they did earlier this Congress on kind of repealing most of the parts of the ACA that you can do under the budget rules. I suspect, I mean, I don't think they've made any decisions. They're still working through that. But I think I would not be surprised at all, and in fact would probably expect that that they would move pretty quickly to get a budget resolution, arm reconciliation, and be in a position of moving forward. And the thing that means then is when they get to the spring in the normal budget process, they have the opportunity to do it again and do another budget resolution and another reconciliation bill, which is a pretty tremendous tool in terms of getting some of their major priorities accomplished.
Now, Rodell, in a closely divided Senate, you got it looks like the most likely scenario is 52 Republicans, 48 Democrats, depending on the Louisiana runoff results next month. Even in this sort of situation where you can pass legislation without a filibuster, what sort of options do the Democrats have in opposing this? Do they have any chance of derailing it?
Well, if we're talking specifically about ACA, and I said this before, messaging is easy, governing is hard. It was so the Republicans say repeal and replace, and I have yet to see the replace part of this. It took Democrats a better part of 2 years to come up with the ACA, and granted, part of that was their fault for stepping over themselves so many times and trying to do it. But the fact is that it'd take much longer to find something to replace this with. I mean, listen, the reality of this is, and I think Republicans know this, which is why they've tried over and over again early on to get rid of ACA, is that you now have 20 million people on health care, and if you just throw it out, then there's 20 million people without health care, unless you come up with some sort of alternative. So, as far as legislatively, can I think of or tactics-wise, can I think of something right now that we could do to derail that? No, and that's why, that's why I think Republicans want to use reconciliation. But I think that we have a great story to tell, and I would just say that I'm looking forward to Republicans trying to explain to their constituents and to the American people, fine, you didn't like Obamacare, we're getting rid of it, but instead we are giving you fill in the blank. And that's going to be harder for them than I think that either they're admitting or that they realize.
I have a slightly different perspective. It won't surprise anyone on that. One of the great canards is Republicans don't have a replace. One of the things that Speaker Ryan did under his direction was this Better Way project, where they outlined what they would do to replace Obamacare. The interesting thing was he was building off work that was already done by Senators Burr and then Senator Coburn and Senator Hatch. Senator Hatch, who's going to be quite influential in what happens in health care, and who had also worked across the dome with Fred Upton, who's the outgoing chairman of the Energy and Commerce Committee, on an approach to this. And so there is a lot of work that really has been done on being able to move in and quickly replace the Affordable Care Act. The second thing is, I'm not sure the story's all that great. The coverage numbers are principally from Medicaid, and if what Republicans have to argue is that we're going to provide you coverage that's better than Medicaid, which is pretty substandard in a lot of places, people on both sides seem to admit, I think they're going to have a pretty good story to tell about what they're offering the American people.
Who are the people on both sides who are going to be delivering these messages? Because the messaging, particularly on something like the Affordable Care Act, was very blunt. You know, it's termed, it's on one side it's phrased as a disaster, on the other side it's phrased as you know, people who could never get health coverage before will have it, and will be saving people from preventable deaths. So who are going to be the people who can calmly and sort of rationally deliver the message from each side that it's a little more complicated than that? I mean, we're in a ballroom in Washington, D.C., a half a block from the Capitol and C-SPAN. I mean, this is a different audience than the campaigns were attracting for these kind of those messages. Who delivers these messages for each one of your sides?
You know, it's not an apples to apples to what Republicans have been doing for the last six years, but our job is to look at the American people, or talk to the American people, and this is what you have, and if you go with what the Republicans are going to do, you're going to lose all of these things. That's an easier method than explaining a health care bill, whatever it is that they do. And listen, the fact is that I don't think most Americans know of Brian's Better Way plan or what Senator Burr or Senator Hatch has done. So, I mean, there needs to be a large education process here. And it becomes harder, I think, to explain legislation that's actually going to affect people's lives versus conceptually, Obamacare is bad, this might be good. So, for us, I think it's something that most of the caucus will, especially those that were there that were big proponents of ACA, and to tell you the truth, who have gotten beaten up over it so much over the last 6 years that I think this is something legacy-wise that there will be no shortage of folks, starting with Schumer, going to Durbin, the rest of the leadership, including Murray, folks like Tim Kaine, Elizabeth Warren. I mean, so I could kind of go down. I don't know who in our caucus, maybe a few of the red state Democrats that are up in 2018 might want to shy away from this fight. But I think that if that's the message, which is 20 million people are going to lose this, and this, that there are going to be a lot of people on our side pushing that along with all the outside groups and what have you.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is going to be a problem for the 25 Senate Democrats who are in cycle, many from red states. I think it's, if Secretary Clinton had won, she was going to have a real problem on her hands with what do you do with these spiking prices and declining number of insurers. Republicans, by the way, had we maintained, as we did, the House majority and she had won, we would have had a difficulty because we couldn't have, whatever you do, you can't let the current system continue to exist. There seems to be a belief on each side that that's not working and something has to change. In terms of messengers, likewise, every Republican is going to be messengers on this. They always do. I think one of the weapons that we have in our arsenal is the large number of physicians that are part of the Republican conference. In the House, Tom Price and Mike Burgess, Barrasso in the Senate. Physicians have a particular credibility when it comes to interacting with the healthcare system and knowing what it means to the patients they treat. They were our most effective spokesman when we were opposing the Affordable Care Act, and I think they're going to be the most effective now as we replace it.
We're going to open it up to questions in just a second. I'll start while people are rushing in droves to the two mics that we have set up over there. Again, Rodell, you sort of put this point that it's a good. A lot of these conversations would be good for 2 months now, and not just 2 days out. But say you're back in the Capitol, and you're dealing with a traumatized group. What do you tell people, or just how do you approach the younger people on your staff? What are you saying to them on 2 days out?
Losing elections suck. Especially when you think you're going to, win. But you owe it to yourself.